Eloise broke my heart. I know that I should have been more insightful and sophisticated about this whole matter. However, at the core, I'm still a farm boy, even after all these years. I am Walter Stillman, a future tax attorney by profession. I know, sad, right? But it's still sadder. Fresh out of law school and earning a Master of Laws in taxation, I was able to get my only job, working in the bankruptcy department of a mid-sized Manhattan law firm. My position is in the firm's smallest practice area and, it must be said, the least desirable. My living conditions are as modest as my work. Rents in New York City are notoriously high. At that time, apartments in Manhattan were not available to junior employees. In those areas called outer, the prices were almost as high. After much searching, I found a room in an apartment with two other impoverished souls at the end of a subway line in Brooklyn. The area was in general disrepair, and it took forever to get to my office. In short, I have a modest job and a roof over my head. More than this could not be said about the beginning of my career in the great city in the East. However, my luck seemed to change almost from the day I started work. The firm's bankruptcy partner was Eric Erickson. This is a gray-haired fox in his early 60s. He was one of the de facto deans of the New York bankruptcy bar, the go-to guy for complex or new issues. He had little patience for the ignorant or incompetent, but he was a good and willing teacher. Many years later, I am still grateful to Mr. Erickson. He, as these city residents say, did everything for me. He was my mentor and friend and taught me skills that would serve me well in the days to come. Without knowing it then, I found my place in life. And then, by pure chance, I found happiness. But first, I needed to break my heart. The bankruptcy department was mostly just Mr. Erickson and myself. In those prosperous times, bankruptcy was the least popular practice at the prestigious firm of Portman and Rosenkrantz. If we needed help, two part-time lawyers were willing to help, albeit reluctantly. I graduated in a field of law that can be said to have been written by Lewis Carroll, a jurisdiction where left is right, and right is always wrong. All laws belong to Alice on the other side of the looking glass. The only member of my graduating class at Northwestern University School of Law who went as far east as I did was Chuck Thompson. We weren't great friends in law school, but we bonded over our Midwestern experiences in a cold Eastern metropolis. Chuck worked, or rather, was a slave, for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. He was recently married to Carol, a girl from New York. An invitation to dinner at their Manhattan apartment was only natural. Upon arrival, I was stunned by the presence of a tall, extremely attractive woman. Eloise Schaffer was New York elegant. This is the most obvious way to describe it. She was a sophisticated New Yorker with a casual manner that suggested her striking appearance was to be expected. One could almost believe that the perfection of her form was a fact of nature and not the result of long hours of work and ingenuity. Why exactly she became my dinner partner at my friend's house, I had no idea. This black-haired, green-eyed beauty was no match for me. Indeed, no one could have expected that she would be interested in an ordinary-looking farm boy working as a junior assistant. But apparently Carol Thompson, in her matchmaker wisdom, thought otherwise. An evening of delightful communication awaited me. Eloise Schaffer was not just a beauty, she had what is called personality. Extroverted and not at all shy, she was an excellent dinner companion. She asked me to take her home to her Brooklyn apartment. I expected to catch a taxi, but she insisted that we take the metro. She stayed close to me during the drive from Chelsea, Manhattan, to Boerum Hill, Brooklyn. It was a trip that took a lot of time at night and included some walking. She used this time to get to know me better, asking me questions, the answers to which she listened carefully to. It was a heady, ego-boosting experience. At the door of her apartment, she insisted on rewarding me with a kiss for my efforts to accompany her home. It was a scorching hot kiss. She could melt iron with that kiss. She acknowledged the fact with a knowing smile as she waited patiently for the dumb farm boy to get the message. Can I see you again?" I asked. With some effort, we found a mutually agreeable time for our official first date, and then, with a second, less heated kiss, she bid me good night. I flew back to my dingy abode at the far end of Flatbush Avenue, not believing that I could be so lucky. 5 weeks and 4 dates later, I was in a deep valley of despair. The night before, Eloise had informed me that she would not be able to see me over the weekend. The reason was her previous commitment to another. With great difficulty, I extracted the name of Rodrigo Ruiz from Eloise. Finding this man was easy. He was the State Labor Commissioner, a very tall, handsome, elderly man, with whom one would expect intimacy from a woman like Eloise. Apparently, I didn't hide my despair very well because Mr. Erickson called me into his office. "So, Walt, what wiped that stupid Midwestern smile from your face, leaving despondency in its place?" Eric asked. "Sorry, this is personal. I wouldn't want to bother anyone with my problems. There's no point in hiding anything from Eric." Soon he had the whole story. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands as if in prayer, and rested his chin on his fingertips. "When I was a boy," he began, "this city was still ruled by the Irish and Jews. It was interesting to watch them. Third and even fourth generation Americans who spoke with an accent or inserted Yiddish phrases into their speech. These were men and women who had graduated from Fordham and Columbia, but had mastered the art of being professionals with an ethnic flair. Now they are no longer there. Sometimes I miss the fun they brought to political art. Politicians are now black professionals or Latinos. They lack the same pathos, or so it seems to me, and I think they take themselves too seriously. Sorry, Mr. Erickson, I don't understand. My deepest wish is that you never lose your Midwestern innocence," he said, sighing. "Walter, your girlfriend's man, was born Rodney Kaufman. His father was the heir to the Kaufman department store fortune, and his mother was Puerto Rican Jewish Louise Ruiz. Rodney is married to Sophie Sloan, a member of the wealthy Sloan family. For political reasons, he took his mother's surname and the Spanish version of his first surname. Roddy Boy is a professional Latino and a full-time politician. Your lady, apparently, will prefer you to him, for 3 good reasons. First of all, the man is 47. Your lady is much younger. Secondly, he is married to a good Jewish woman, with whom he has 3 children. This woman is not very jealous, allowing her husband to play on the side, but will categorically object to being replaced, just like her rich and influential family. And thirdly, there is Roddy himself and his family. These are progressive times, but I doubt he's looking to insult his wealthy and politically supportive family by dating a Christian girl." "But what if she's dating him?" I noted. Eric frowned impatiently, as he did when asking stupid questions. "How old is this lady?" he asked. 29. A lady with a neglected biological clock, and you are a suitable 26-year-old lawyer. I think you failed to correctly assess your weight in this matter. The introduction of Roddy Boy into the equation was only meant to give you the proper motivation to move forward. 4 dates at this age with a 29-year-old single woman means things are serious. So, either be serious or get lost," concluded Eric Erickson. After talking with my boss, I felt better and, moreover, encouraged. On our next date, I pressed the point and was rewarded with a warm response. "If we move on, I need to know that things are serious with you," she said. "I can ask the same thing. Are you speaking in general?" "Yes, and about Rhoda." "I've been dating him for several years," she said. "But he's not serious, and I'm serious," I answered, once again thinking about how smart Erickson is. She took me to her bed. I wasn't a virgin, although I didn't have much experience. She had much more experience, and she used every bit of it. I barely survived that night. I moved into her apartment for a week. The apartment was large by New York standards, with one of those hallways that seemed to go on forever. A marriage proposal was inevitable. She started dropping hints as soon as I moved into the apartment. When we met, Eloise was 29, working as an associate manager at Sanderson Financial Management, already in the ranks of senior management, and soon after our engagement, she became a vice president. I realized that she was smart and somewhat meticulous, but I was almost shocked by her organizational skills. Preparations for the wedding took barely 6 weeks. Family-wise, she was the eldest of 3 children and the only daughter. Her father, also a lawyer, worked in real estate development in Westchester and Putnam counties, north of New York. As far as I can tell, he was very interested in politics. That's why they planned a really big wedding so well and quickly. Death reduced my family to just my only sister. Nancy now lived with her friend on the West Coast near Portland. She stopped talking to me the day she told me she was a lesbian. Maybe it was because I wasn't delighted, but some kind of chasm appeared that could no longer be closed. I invited her to the wedding, but she refused. My own career had settled into a comfortable rut. Now I was doing less serious things without Eric's help. He didn't hide the fact that he was preparing me. The bankruptcy was stagnant, and Eric made no secret of the fact that I needed to be ready when things picked up because he was preparing to retire. You have everything you need, enough intelligence and a pleasant personality. But you need to learn to work, he said. I studied the code of laws and cases very diligently. Yes, but you need some techniques that have not yet been written down. On the Friday before the wedding, I learned a new move. Eloise and her mother chose Labor Day for their wedding. Something I didn't understand about this early date was that it also meant we had the weekend to prepare, and we could fly off to the Caribbean for the honeymoon her parents were giving us the Tuesday after the wedding. The suitcases were packed and stood against the wall in the long corridor of our apartment, 3 for Eloise and 1 for me. I was a little nervous about the wedding, but I didn't have time to think about it that morning. The week before, my bride-to-be had gone to the family home in Westchester so we could have a little time apart before the wedding. This will make the honeymoon even better and keep my wedding jitters from driving hubby away, she said with a laugh. At 10 o'clock on Friday, the last business day of August, 3 days before the wedding, I had a hearing in bankruptcy court regarding the formation of the first day. Such a resolution is made at an early stage of the reorganization to establish the rules for the debtor's further work under the protection of the court. In a small case like mine, the hearings are not very formal. Usually, only a few lawyers and a judge are present. Basically, this is the bank's lawyer and the debtor's lawyer, like me. Judge Marks usually stuck to the rules. I walked into my office that Friday, ready to grab my case file and head to court. But the clerk told me that the judge's secretary had called to set up a telephone hearing as soon as I walked in. I immediately became nervous. The judge's clerk connected all parties, and Judge Marks said, "So, Amanda, tell me what your problem is with this ruling." Amanda was a bank lawyer. She was smart and knew the law. Her arguments were precise and clearly addressed the weakest points of my request. She was an excellent lawyer, but not very pleasant to look at. She was nicknamed Sugar, which made no sense. She was short, less than 5 feet, and chubby, especially in the lower half, but I always thought she had a pretty face. When Amanda finished, I tried to speak, but the judge interrupted me. "The resolution is issued. My secretary will fax it to the parties," he said when the phone went silent. Amanda just laughed when I asked her, "What just happened?" "Judge Marks received tickets from my firm yesterday for the last days of the Saratoga races. He needs to be north of Albany by 1 p.m. He can't talk to us on the phone. Today, for the sake of appearances, he ruled against me in a case that doesn't really matter, but wait until next time and I'll stab you," she said, still laughing. "It's not the way I like to win," I complained. "Take whatever you can get," she replied and paused. "You know, my aunts would say that you are a very good young man for a goyim." Still laughing, she ended the conversation. Around this time, Eric came in and told me to take the day off and rest before the wedding. When I left, I couldn't help but ask, "Who are the goyim?" He smiled. "It's you and me, not Jews." "And what?" "Some people said that I was a good young man for a guy." "Oh, compliment. Someone likes you." I headed to the apartment, thinking I could head to Westchester early. So I was supposed to arrive only the next day. The wedding rehearsal is on Saturday evening, but damn, why kill time in the city? I expected to be busy with my own business. It should have taken most of the day, and maybe even the evening. We would have written and rewritten every word of the resolution to please everyone involved, but that didn't happen. So why not get a head start? I tried calling first, but Eloise's phone went to voicemail, so I made a fateful choice. I called her parents' house in Westchester, hoping to talk to someone or at least leave a message. I think it was one of those random circumstances that changed everything. None of the Schaffer family was home. The regular maid, Rosita, took the day off to fit the dress she would wear to her wedding. Her cousin replaced her. The cousin was a woman with limited English who I never spoke to. She didn't recognize my name. "I want to leave a message for Miss Eloise." "This is Walter," I said for the third time. "She's not here, she's in the city." "I know that she lives in the city, but she came home for the wedding. This is Walter. I'll come later today." "She's in the city, staying at a hotel." "Come to the wedding tomorrow," said Rosita's cousin. It took a second, but my curiosity was piqued. "In which hotel?" "Plaza," came the answer. I'm not a suspicious person, but who wouldn't pause after such a conversation? It was almost noon when I broke down and called the Plaza Hotel. Our reception took place in Westchester County, not at the famous Plaza Hotel in New York City. Something was happening that they didn't tell me about. There was a bachelorette party last week, but perhaps the ladies decided to have another prenuptial celebration. I called the hotel and asked for Eloise Schaffer. No one registered under this name. Then perhaps it was self-doubt that made me ask. "How about Rodrigo Ruiz?" "No, sorry," answered the young woman. "Try Rodney Kaufman." There was a pause and she said, "Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Rodney Kaufman were staying with us in the honeymoon suite. Please connect with me. It could still be someone else." "Not such a rare name," I said to myself while the beeps were ringing. When the man answered, I almost hung up, but I had to ask, "Eloise Schaffer, please." "El, it's for you," I heard him say. "Hello," she said. I recognized her voice but could not speak. "Hello, is anyone alive?" "There's no one there," she answered him. "Yes, he asked you." "Hello? This is Walter. You shouldn't come to the wedding." "I won't be there," I said, finally finding my voice. As I hung up, I heard her scream my name before the phone went dead. I don't remember the next thing well. I was shocked. I sat in the apartment as if paralyzed. In a sense, I was paralyzed. It seemed as if the strength had left my body. Everything good in my life seemed to disappear. It was all a lie. Romance, living together, a fashionable apartment. It was our apartment, but in fact, according to the lease agreement, it belonged to her. My mind was in lockdown mode. I knew that I needed to get up, grab my suitcase from the hallway, and leave. I had nowhere to go, but I needed to get out of the place where I was. Someone opened the apartment door. It was her. I wondered vaguely how she got here so quickly. I looked at my watch and saw that it was already 2 o'clock. It occurred to me that the judge should be at the races. This fact changed my life. "Walter, we need to talk," she said. "Have you been there all week?" I asked. She stood in the middle of the living room. Her eyes avoided meeting mine. "We just said goodbye," she said. "So it didn't end like that," I said. "Walter, stop it. You know that I love you." "How do I know this?" "I'll never see him again." "We broke up," she said. "Why?" "I was with him for 7 years, almost from the day I moved to the city." "No, why finish?" "Because I'm marrying you on Monday," she said. "No, you're not going out." "Walter, please be reasonable. Everything is arranged. More than 300 guests will come." I didn't answer. There was no point. I stood up and walked past her. "Where are you going? We must work things out," she cried. I grabbed my suitcase and went out. She followed me, screaming for me to stop. In the end, she gave up. I wandered aimlessly for quite a long time. I vaguely felt that I was heading towards the bridge. It was getting dark and I was tired of walking. I crossed Court Street near City Hall, found a small bar. It was full of people on a Friday night, but I found a dark corner and crawled into it. "Hello?" she said. I looked up and saw Sugar Moskowitz. She had a glass in each hand. She placed one in front of me. "I thought you looked like you could use it," she said. "Thank you," I stuttered, taking a sip of the very strong drink. "It's called a stinger, and as you can see, I'm not a religious girl," she said. "Religious?" She smiled. It was a beautiful smile, and she explained, "Drinking at the singles bar with the Goyim on a Friday night. And what should I tell my mother about that suitcase?" When she said this, I lowered my eyes, suddenly remembering my suitcase. "Oh, I had to leave. After all, this is her apartment," I said, taking a sip of the drink, which burned to the very bottom. Sugar Amanda didn't ask me any questions. She told funny stories about herself and about people we mutually knew from bankruptcy court. This is a narrow specialization, and everyone knows each other. She kept my glass full and tried to make me laugh. I think she already knew I was engaged and soon to be married, but she wasn't surprised that I showed up at a Brooklyn bar on the Friday before the wedding with a suitcase. Perhaps she drank a little before my arrival and did not understand the significance of the suitcase and where I was now. About the only thing I remember about that evening was Amanda helping me into the car and saying, "Not far to go." Later I dreamed about Eloise. She pinned me to the bed and enjoyed herself much more than usual. I needed to go to the toilet. The need was urgent, but when I got out of bed, I realized that I had no idea where I was. The apartment has changed. For a moment I was completely disoriented. And then it all came back to me in one sharp and painful memory. I left Eloise and her apartment. And where am I now? My head hurt, and it felt like someone had stuffed it with cotton wool. I remembered almost nothing about the previous evening. I remember going into a small bar on Court Street. One of my friends appeared there. For a moment I couldn't remember who it was, and then I did. Amanda Sugar. What was she doing there? And what was I doing here, naked, in an unfamiliar bed? I was in a small room. It was barely big enough for a double bed. There was no other furniture in the room. The bed was directly adjacent to the window, which ran from the middle of the wall to the ceiling. I was alone on this bed, which had signs that a second person had slept on it. There was no closet in the room, and my clothes were nowhere to be seen. In fact, the room could have been an oversized closet containing a bed. But there was a door. It didn't open all the way because it was blocked by the bed. I looked out. There was a larger room there. There was a window on one side of the wall. The sidewalk was visible outside the window. I was in what in this part of the world is called an English cellar. This is the floor located below the main building. It is half above and half underground. The windows started just below sidewalk level. This space had been converted into a small apartment, or as I later learned, 2 apartments. The one I was in, and an even smaller back apartment. The main room was divided by a counter into a dining room and kitchen. The bay window was a sort of living room with 2 small chairs and a window seat. Seeing no one, I crawled outside in search of the bathroom and my clothes. There was a door at the far side of the room. When I got out, it opened. Amanda came out in a robe, drying her wet hair with a towel. "Oh, you're awake," she said, noticing me. "Just in time, it must be almost noon." My hands flew to cover my groin, which only caused me to giggle. "It's too late for modesty," she said. "Last night I saw everything. All I could do was run past her, figuring the room she came out of with wet hair was the bathroom. I was right, and after closing the door, I lifted the toilet seat and released the contents of my bladder into the toilet. It was a small bathroom with only a shower stall, no bathtub. I decided to take advantage of this and wash myself before discussing with the hostess what happened to my clothes and suitcase. The shower may have been small, but the water was hot and soothing to my very hungover body. Refreshed, I searched in vain for a towel. Wet and naked, I had no choice but to go out and meet Amanda. I opened the bathroom door and walked out, only to realize that we were no longer alone. A young dark-haired woman sat at the table and looked straight at me with a wide grin on her face. Amanda was in the small open-plan kitchen, fiddling with cups and a coffee pot. "How do you feel about coffee?" Amanda asked as easily as if I wasn't standing there naked. I jumped back behind the bathroom door and called, "Can I have some clothes, please? Or at least a towel?" Both women burst out laughing, but Amanda stopped to say, "The towels are in the closet, as are your suitcase and the clothes you tore off last night." Poking my head out from behind the door, I asked, "Where could the closet be?" Still giggling, Amanda pointed the coffee pot at the barred doors at the back of the room, behind the desk, and right in front of what must have been the front door to the apartment. "I would bring them to you, but, as you can see, I'm busy," said Amanda. The other woman made no attempt to get up, and I had no choice but to run to the closet, and I ran away. Having reached the closet, I opened the doors. My clothes were there, inside. The suit and shirt were neatly hung, and the underwear lay on the suitcase. I grabbed the last one, pulling on my shorts and shirt as quickly as I could. But all this time I heard the women giggling behind me. "Walter, by the way, this is my sister, Sonia," said Amanda. "Hello, Mr. Stillman," said Sonia. "Hello," I replied, opening my suitcase to take out my jeans. "Because of me, you don't have to get dressed," said Sonia. "I am the younger sister, but I am already married, and I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Knockhead male bodies don't shock me." They both laughed at this as I pulled on my jeans. "Let's go have some coffee," Amanda invited, and Sonia brought Bailey's. "In a minute," I replied. "You didn't tell me that he was so shy," Sonia whispered to her sister. "I didn't know," Amanda answered, also in a loud whisper. "We seem to barely know each other." "You are a free woman, Amanda," Sonia giggled. After putting on my trousers and shirt, I turned to take a seat at the small table. I needed coffee. "I like it black, without sugar," I said. Sonia giggled and whispered to her sister, "I think he got his sugar last night." They burst out laughing. I had a headache. Amanda handed me a cup of very strong coffee. As I was putting the cup in front of me, my mobile phone rang. It was Sonia's phone, and she took it out of a large leather bag lying at her feet on the floor. "Oh, hi," Sonia said, answering. She closed the receiver and whispered, "Aunt Hester." "Of course I remembered," Sonia continued. "Now I'm with Amanda, but she has guests and I didn't have a chance to mention it." There was a pause, then Sonia said with a grin, "No, her company is a man." Amanda ran her hand across her throat, as if cutting it off, but Sonia calmly continued, "Yes, he is handsome, but a little shy. No, he's definitely not a Jew. Yes, I'm absolutely sure," Sonia whispered into the phone. "I caught a glimpse of him when he came out of the shower." Now Sonia was laughing uncontrollably. "She wants to talk to you," Sonia said, handing the phone to Amanda. "Hello, Aunt," Amanda said into Sonia's phone. "No, I will never forget Daddy's birthday. Tomorrow at 6, and at 7 we have dinner. Got it? Oh, he's just a friend. Is it true?" There was a pause while Hester apparently spoke. "It won't work. He's a friend from work. I'm sure he'll feel awkward at a family party."